Hello and welcome to my lab. I've been completely distracted from the ice maker lately due to legitimate work, but I've got a small window of time, so let's see if we can crank out a final video on this. And you're gonna have to forgive me, I don't exactly remember what we did and didn't talk about. I pretty much got it finished, so we'll take a look at that. But also, I want to show you something else that's interesting at the end, so stay tuned for that. Just as a recap, the point of this, again, is to test to see if there's other ways of making clear ice than simply by freezing it very slowly in a single direction. That's the standard method. People put water in an ice box and then put that in the freezer. But that's laborious and not very fast, and I just want to see if there's a faster way of doing it. So we're testing to see if we can vibrate the bubbles out of it with this vibration motor, or to see if we can use a combination of like heat and vacuum and stuff to get the bubbles out. So we'll just try those things and see how it goes. So let's take a look at the device here. So I programmed this interface in that can set up all the settings, and I've got it set up so that it can run cycles of heating and vacuum and cooling and vibration. I've got that all set up. So we should be good to go to just go ahead and run our tests. So the first test I'm going to run is simply pouring some water in there and freezing it to see if there's actually just a benefit to ours over the ice in my refrigerator, which is our comparison point. I'm just going to run this thing in manual mode for now, and you'll see up at the top, you'll see a block temperature. That's the temperature measured by a thermocouple on the aluminum block that freezes the ice. And then there's water temperature. That's the temperature of the coolant water. There's the water system here. So you'll see as the Peltier devices start cranking up, you'll see the water temperature rise as that's taking heat away from the system, and then the block temperature should fall. So this will get, down below zero, and then, theoretically we'll have ice. Something interesting has happened. We've had it freezing for a while, and the block temperature, the temperature of that aluminum block that's freezing things, that went down to like -2 degrees Celsius, which means that the water was super cooled and then suddenly fresh. The problem with that is if it does flash freeze, it produces this nasty slush stuff here. So that's really not conducive to making clear ice. So I need to slow that down. I don't actually know why it's supercooling the ice rather than just freezing it. I'm gonna play around with that a bit and see if I can fix that. All right, I skipped ahead a little bit. I did some messing around. This thing always supercools the water for some reason. Don't fully understand that. But I made 2 changes after kind of just testing a bunch of stuff rapidly. When I turn the thermoelectric coolers down a bit, meaning that I'm going to freeze it slowly, the quality of the ice seems to dramatically increase. So it seems like we were just going too fast. And also, you can see right here, now it's going along, and I don't know if you can see this very well, but there's a little ice right here. That's right at the edge. So it's freezing really well, nice and clear ice. Which I'm actually kind of surprised that works at all without any additional help. But still, what I'm doing is I'm freezing it until it gets super cooled, and I can kind of tell just by the temperature and the fact that it's not frozen that it's super cooled. I'll actually go in and stir it a bit, and ice crystals actually form in the water here. And then I've actually taken my heat gun and I heat it back up in the center. And that just leaves a little thin layer of ice on the outside that can build up. And that's, I left that to freeze for a while, and that's what we have right here. So that's a little weird process that I wasn't expecting to have to do. But that's super interesting. We might actually end up with clear ice without me actually using the vacuum or the vibration. But we'll see how this finishes out. I know it gets a little weird at the end, so we'll see how these end up. So we're just going to skip to the end of this freezing process. Okay, here's the ice out of the machine. Let me just get a little bit on here. So I did slow down the machine a little bit, the freezing process, to get the ice to this level. But this is our baseline without doing anything special to it at all. And to compare, here's the ice out of my freezer. There's a lot more bubbles in this thing. It's pretty much bubbles all the way throughout. But there's a layer of nice clear ice around the center, or around the perimeter. And then in the center, of course, you've got a lot of bubbles. And I imagine that's just because as you freeze, you're increasing the amount of air dissolved per unit volume. And then it just gets to be at too high a density, and then you get a bunch of bubbles. So I'm hoping that maybe if we use vibration and or heating in a vacuum and all that, we can get some results. So next I'm going to try just heating the water up, putting it under a vacuum, and then freezing it from there. Of course, I'm going to continue using the slower freezing process, and I've still got to make sure it doesn't super cool, because that ruins the whole process. So we'll see if we can do something about that to automate that later. But for now, this actually looks really promising because it's already way better than the ice from my refrigerator. So I guess even if this doesn't work, well, at least we have somewhat good ice. So there's that. I'm going to go ahead and start the next batch going and with the heating. So let's go. Okay, a little bit of bad news. I went ahead and ran several tests just to speed things up here, and no matter what I set, I wasn't able to really make any difference to the ice that came out, which is just how projects go sometimes. I was hoping that maybe I could have some, sneaky way of making better ice just by extracting the air out of the water, but at least using this stuff, vibration didn't do anything, vacuum didn't do anything even when I applied some heat to it, which I thought maybe I could, because technically the solubility of air in water goes down with a decrease in pressure as well as an increase in temperature, but it didn't really seem to extract any air from the water. I suspect it might have a harder time going into the water, but if it's not, if I can't get water that doesn't already have air in it, then that's going to be a problem. So I suspect, if someone knew more about chemistry or something, you could probably just somehow get water that doesn't already have air dissolved in it, and then you could probably make clear ice with it. At least intuitively, that makes sense to me. But I don't really know enough about chemistry and stuff to try to actually get the air out of the water. Maybe with some ultrasonic or something, but I don't have the equipment to test that. So the interesting thing though is that the part that I actually didn't think was going to work, which was just turning this whole assembly upside down and turning it on to heat and having the ice fall out, that actually just worked no problem. So every time I ran the test, I would just flip this upside down, and you have to wait a little while, and eventually it'll just drip a bunch of water and then out pops the ice. So that's kind of neat that part worked. Interesting how that goes. But now I'm getting bored with this concept, so let's go just do something else. I can show you some of the other stuff we're working on. So let's go take a look. All right, like I said earlier, you'll have to excuse the mess. There's a bunch of stuff going on here in the lab, which makes it very difficult to release any kind of meaningful video in a reasonable amount of time. But one interesting thing here is I've been working on gaining a better understanding of machine learning and neural networks and all that stuff. So most of that's just been software, which I prefer not to make videos about because it just gets very technical and not very visually satisfying. But here, I'm going to go ahead and put together a little robot as a test bed for artificial intelligence. So I just bought this cheap robot chassis off of Amazon. It's quite nice for how little it cost. And I'm just going to hack a bunch of stuff together. I'm going to put this robot arm on top here. And also, I've got a really nice camera over here. I haven't worked with this before, but it's this Intel RealSense camera that theoretically is like a Microsoft Kinect that actually works. It should tell me the depth of every pixel, which it might be interesting to combine that with a neural network. If I can detect certain things and then this can tell me the distance of those things, I don't know. I just get the feeling that this is going to be very handy. So I'm just going to kind of hack all these things together, sort of like kit bashing this stuff together. I got to fit this computer somewhere in here, and battery and power supplies and everything. So that's kind of something I'm working on, and if I find a nice little application for it that makes a good video, then you'll be seeing that coming up soon. But for now, that's really the only thing I can show you that I'm working on. There is some other stuff going on, but hopefully I'm going to be doing some smaller projects, which are a lot easier to make a video about. So you should see some smaller one-episode projects coming up somewhat soon. Until then, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.